And operators, I want to help you do an end of year performance review. I want to share with you what I go over with my clients to kind of wrap up your year and then compare it to previous years and set up a standard for next year, all coming up in this video right here, right now. Hey everybody, Ryan Gromfin here, author, speaker, chef, restaurateur, founder of therestaurantboss.com, as well as clickbacon.com and scalemyrestaurant.com. And that's right, it's the end of the year, it's December. If we haven't already, it is definitely time to start thinking about next year and the years after that, as well as doing a performance review, just kind of looking at what we did last year. So let's get a head start on that right now before we end the year and then we just start getting caught up in the mess of next year. So now would be a great time for you to put some things on paper that on January 2nd or January 3rd, whatever your first day back at work in the new year is, you want to start filling this out and creating a standard going forward so you can compare year to year these factors, maybe even quarterly to quarterly. But first, let's just start with kind of the 6 basic financials. Now, I always want to say, whenever we're talking about financials here, I would rather have bigger categories, less data that's more accurate and more actionable than big data sets with highly detailed, highly in-depth numbers and analysis that is possibly not accurate, or I don't know how to act on it or don't know what to do with that. I often see, I get on the phone with restaurant owners and they share with me spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet of data. And then I ask the question, what do you do with all this? And they're like, I don't really know. Chances are they read an article somewhere, they read a book somewhere, they went to some seminar somewhere, they got convinced by some big software company that they need some big, expensive, complex software tool. They need to take inventory to control their costs, and they need this and they need that. And then they end up with so much data they don't even know what to do with it. In fact, just earlier today when I filmed this video, I was on the phone with a restaurant accountant who is complaining about this himself. He gives his clients all this data, but then they don't act on it. And so he and I were trying to develop more of a flash report, a simpler report, something more like what we do in our software, ClickBacon, to just keep things really simple and really straightforward. So again, let me just quickly share this with you. So first is, what was your cost of goods sold? Now, if you have the ability to break down your cost of goods sold per category, food, beer, wine, liquor, even better. But if not, just what's your cost of goods sold? And if you don't take inventory, that's great. I hate taking inventory. Unless you're doing like $10 million a year in your restaurant, you shouldn't be taking inventory. But all you really have to do is just, what were your year-end purchases on food and beer and wine and liquor divided by your year-end sales? And there's your cost of goods sold. It's really that simple. We can do the same for labor costs. How much money did you spend on labor? What were your total sales? And boom, there's your labor costs. Just make sure you include taxes, benefits, insurance, and stuff in that. And once we have those two numbers, we now have prime cost, which is the third thing that you need to be measuring. Prime cost. I'll go over some of these in a second of what we're looking for here. The fourth thing that you need to have is your controllable expenses or direct operating expenses. These are not things like gas and utilities, telephone. Those are fixed expenses. Controllable expenses are the things that are, I'm sorry, not fixed expenses. Those are non-controllable expenses. I said fixed expenses, I meant non-controllable expenses. The things that I care about here are controllable expenses. Your controllable expenses are things like chemical purchases, paper goods, repairs and maintenance, janitorial supplies, stuff like that, where it's not a cost of goods sold, but it's definitely related to how busy you are and you can definitely control it. I don't want to get into too much of a conversation about what a direct operating expense is or what it isn't. I have other videos on that. Just Google the Restaurant Boss direct operating expenses and you'll find all those, or we'll link them to here, or we have a playlist or something for you. But for now, just you need to know what your direct operating expenses are, your controllable expenses. And now we can get the fifth number for us, which is going to be what I call restaurant controllable cost. Now, when we take our cost of goods sold and our labor costs and our direct operating expenses and add them up, we get restaurant controllable costs. Now, I used to teach for like 8 years, prime cost is the most important number in your restaurant. But over the last couple of years, I've really started adjusting that. And now what I teach is restaurant controllable cost. Restaurant controllable cost is the most important number in your restaurant. And that's number 5. And then number 6 is your per person average. I know a lot of you can't calculate per person average because you work on guest checks. If that's the best you can do, that's fine. But if you can figure out a way to get your per person average, it is so much more powerful and so much more applicable to growing your restaurant and knowing if you're growing or not. Because a lot of times I work with a lot of clients when we do our year-end analysis, we find that maybe their sales were up by 8, 10, 12%, but their guest counts were down or flat. So that's not growth. That's just you increased prices this year. Your sales went up because you increased prices, but you didn't grow. The way that I'm going to measure your growth is on your guest counts and your guest average. If I know how many guests you served last year and I know your sales, I can figure out your guest average. What I want to make sure of is not just that my guest average is going up, but that my guest counts are going up. Because if my guest counts are going up, then I know my business is continuing to grow. It's not just staying flat and only growing based on menu increase prices. So let's go over those 6 things again really quick. We have cost of goods sold, labor cost. Those two together equal prime cost. Then controllable expenses or direct operating expenses. Then we add in those direct operating expenses to the cost of goods sold and the labor cost, and we end up with restaurant controllable cost, which is number 5, and then number 6 is your per person average. Now, really quickly, quick review here. I don't really know what your cost of goods sold or your labor cost should be, 30, whatever, maybe 35, 25, I don't know. I always say to people, if anyone tells you what your food cost should be or your cost of goods sold or your labor cost, fire them immediately because they don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what your food cost should be. What I do know is that your prime cost, when you put those two together, your cost of goods sold and your labor cost should be less than 60%. I shoot for 55 with clients, but should be less than 60%. Then when we add in our direct operating expenses, we should be right around 65 to 68% at the most. We're really shooting for about a 68% RCC. That's all in. That's repairs, maintenance, janitorial, chemicals, everything included in that number. Now that leaves you with about 30 to 35% that you can have your fixed expenses, your rent, your marketing, your utilities, your insurance, and then still have some room for profit. So that's on the kind of financial side. Now there's 4 other things that I like to include when we do our year-end performance review, and that is employee turnover. How often did you turn over employees? How many employees do you have divided by how many employees you hired, and give yourself an employee turnover rate. So that way you know how many employees you've turned over this year. Sometimes you might have a 4.5 turnover, which means that you've gone through 4 times the amount of employees that you actually have on your team. We need to be keeping track of that. Another thing is the average length of employment. Now, average length of employment should go up every year that you're open, but sometimes it doesn't. And I know this year was an especially tough year, but all the more reason why we need to be keeping track of that. Another thing that I want you to keep track of and to do a year-end review is going to be your average rating on the major review sites. Google, Facebook, Yelp. If you're using DoorDash, if you're using UberEats, those are all what I would consider major review sites. So what's your average rating on those sites? And then how many reviews do you have on those sites? These 10 items, and that's it, it's 10 items. If you can keep track of these 10 items every year and compare them to the previous year just to make yourself aware of them, if you can keep track of these 10 items every quarter or even every month, would be all that much better. But this is the general process I go through when I'm doing a year-end review with a client or with anyone that is seeking some help. And this is something that you should be doing in your restaurant and keeping track of. I know today's video went a little bit long, but I felt it was very important. The last thing I just want to add here is if you need help tracking those financials, if you haven't checked out ClickBacon, we are doing some really amazing fun things with ClickBacon. Go to clickbacon.com and check it out. We've updated our dashboard. We've created a mobile app. We've created an integration with QuickBooks. We're working on more integrations right now, but we are really trying to make ClickBacon the absolute simplest, absolute easiest, absolute most powerful and effective, low-cost tool for your average everyday restaurant to keep track of these metrics as well as a few other of the most important metrics. If you're looking for a full inventory system, one, Why are you looking for a full inventory system unless you're doing like $10 million a year? And two, ClickBacon's not for you. Doesn't do all that crazy, fancy, ridiculously hard, expensive stuff. ClickBacon is straightforward, easy to use, incredibly powerful. We have some awesome tools in there that can help you out. Again, I don't want to get into it too much here. Just check out clickbacon.com. Shoot us an email, support@therestaurantboss.com, and we can fill you in a little bit more to see if that's the right fit for you. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this week's video, and I look forward to bringing you another great video just like this next week. My name is Ryan Gromfin, and remember, systems create freedom, freedom creates value, and value creates scale. I love every single one of you crazy restaurant people, and have an absolutely amazing day. Bye-bye. I have never backed down from a challenge before, but writing this book is absolutely the hardest thing and one of the things I am most proud of ever in my professional career. See, before I wrote this book about 7 years ago, I wrote my first book. It never got published because I'm not an author. I'm a chef. I can't spell. I use commas wrong. I start every sentence with but. I ramble on. I break every rule in the English language possible. I'm just not trained for this, but I wanted to write a book, and I sat down and I wrote a book back in 2014, and I was really proud of it. And when I sent it off to the people that were going to publish it, they all but laughed. They couldn't even put it in an email. They called me and said, there's absolutely no way we could publish this. The amount of editing and the amount of work it's going to take are just too big of a task. Good luck. And that was it. Now, I got that phone call on my birthday, and I had dinner plans with my wife that night, and I was really sad. And then about halfway through the dinner, we turned it around and we said, you know what? There's good content in there. And what are you good at, Ryan? You're good at talking, right? I talk a lot. So we turned that book into an audio course. And while it may not have made a great book, the information was incredible. That became our first audio course. It really launched the Restaurant Boss website and online presence. And that book had sold thousands of copies all around the world as an audio course. And then I've still wanted to write a book and get one published, but I just kept saying I was too busy. But in reality, I think I was just a little too afraid to sit down and do it again. But last year, we set the goal to do it. And then when COVID hit, it really motivated me because the world needs the information in this book. You need the information in this book. And I wanted it in a way that it was accessible to everyone, where cost wasn't a barrier, where technology wasn't a barrier. Anyone can read this book. We also didn't want to write a big book. It's only 124 pages. Look at it. It's big font. There's pictures. It's small. That's why we call it Make It Happen, a tiny book for building a big restaurant business. Because we want this book to be easy to consume by you and your team and anyone else who's either thinking about opening up a restaurant, is in the restaurant business and wants to grow, has a restaurant and wants to enjoy more money and more freedom, or maybe you want to scale. Maybe you want to open up 2, 5, 10, or 100 restaurants. It's all in here. But I do want to issue a little bit of a warning. I'm a very honest person, if you haven't noticed from my YouTube videos, and this book is no different. What's in this book are proven strategies. What's not in this book is fluff. What's not in this book is hyperbole or pie in the sky or wishful thinking strategies or just do this because it's so easy, when in reality it's not easy. It's going to be hard to build a big restaurant business. It's going to be hard if you're a chef and you want to get promoted to executive chef. It's going to be hard if you're a chef and you want to open up your own restaurant one day. And I don't sugarcoat that. So part of reading this book might really affect you. It might really hit a nerve with you. But I promise you, what's in here are only proven strategies that I've learned from working with clients, proven strategies that I learned from my days operating restaurants, proven strategies that I've studied from other restaurateurs during interviews and just studying their brands. And I know we put together an absolutely incredible book called Make It Happen. If you're thinking of opening a restaurant, if you own a restaurant, if you want to own more restaurants, if you want to make more money, if you want to operate with more freedom, then this book's for you. Now, we're giving away this book completely for free because I don't want there to be any excuses. Yes, we have to charge a couple dollars to ship it because we're not giving away the PDF version, the ebook. This is a real book. This is printed. It's on paper. We're going to ship this book to you. The book is absolutely free. Just ask you to pay a couple dollars in shipping so that way you can have this book forever on your bookshelf, in your collection. You can give it to others in your business. You can give it to coworkers, and you can enjoy this forever. So thank you for coming along on the journey with me. I am so excited about it. Make it happen. A tiny book for building a big restaurant business. Go ahead and click the link somewhere on this page. There's a button. Grab your copy of this book completely for free today. And remember, systems create freedom. Freedom creates value. Value creates scale. I love every single one of you crazy restaurant people, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye-bye.